You can see my screen. Thank you very much for nice introduction. It's quite late in here. It's around 11:30 at night, and I guess it's just an afternoon in Mexico. So hello to everybody, and thank you very much for being there, for listening to me with my presentation. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the impact of nutritional colic prevention, feeding strategies for gut health. Okay. So, colic is the most common emergency condition and a significant cause of death in horses. And colic occurs more frequently in horses that have previously experienced it. And we indicate colic as abdominal pain. And this abdominal pain, that is something related to gastrointestinal tract. So there is so many different types of colic, and the majority of them that we see in the practice are stomach distension, displacement of colic, gas colic, impaction colic, enteritis, or colitis. And they have different meaning, but at the end, they all cause an abdominal pain in the horse. For example, impaction colic occurs when there is a blockage or obstruction in the gastrointestinal tract. And this is commonly in large or small colon. Or if we talk about small spasmodic colic, which is characterized by intermittent spasm or contraction of the intestinal muscles leading to pain. Enteritis or colitis, these refers inflammation of the small intestine, while colitis refers to an inflammation of the large intestine. And both of these conditions, enteritis and colitis, can cause colic symptoms in horses. They are often cause different symptoms, different signs in horses. So they are, even though they all mentioned as a colic, which indicates an abdominal pain, there are so many different signs and so many underlying causes that we can see. So therefore, it is very hard to manage the colic cases. And because of the mortality rate and high mortality rate, the prevention from the colic is the key factor for us as a nutrition. So what are the common symptoms that we see? Colic can range from mild and self-limiting cases to severe and life-threatening conditions. So the most common symptoms that we see are discomfort in the horses. And the discomfort in horses can be visible with different type of behavioral or attitude changes. For example, you can see the horse as biting or kicking their flank or belly, or poor eating behavior and not eating any grain, or not eating their hay. So different attitudes, different movements, or differences than their regular conditions. But mostly, we also see them laying through their back and lying down, or if they have really discomfort, they roll through left and right, so you can see. And the most important things to follow at that stage, to see that either the horse is defecating and urinating, and is the horse eating or not eating. So these are very important symptoms for us to record. And because of the different symptoms, we can categorize them also mild to severe symptoms. For example, if we see like changes in gums or repeating rolling, so this means that the condition is very serious and you should immediately meet or contact with our veterinary clinics. Or if you see just reduced appetite or passing glass or no droppings and so on, you can still be in contact with your veterinarian, but these symptoms can sometimes be also discussed by your veterinarians through the phone. But in several cases, the horse definitely be examined by practitioners, equine practitioners. And as you see, we have talked about several different conditions and also several different symptoms, but there's no one unique symptoms that we can say that, okay, if you see this on the horse, this is definitely colic. So therefore, we also need to understand the causes that are underlying it. And there's so many different risk factors. There's so much discussion on that. And I can say that I'm working in this area more than 20 years at the moment, and there's so many controversial studies and so on, but there are also horses that needs help. So what we know at the moment, so mainly I focus on those things. So what we can say that limited grazing options or very poor quality, very poor hygienic quality forages, or sudden dietary changes or high level of cereal feedings can cause colic. That doesn't mean that they will cause a colic, but can be a risk factor for causing colic. So I will share a table with you now, so which will help you to understand the difficulties a little bit more. I have listed in here 7 studies, including also my study in the last row. Even though the study is quite old, it looks like quite old studies, there's not much really new studies that shows a different opinion than those. So that's the reason I still use those publications. For example, if you see that change in feed, which means recent change in feed means that last 2 weeks change in the diet. So even though we see that according to some research studies, recent change in the diet is a risk factor, which is also commonly known in the field by trainers, by practitioners. And for example, in my PhD, I didn't find that as a risk factor. Or amount of concentrate, even though it's a big discussion topic, Cohen et al. In 1999 mentioned that no, it's not a risk factor. So we can talk about inadequate water supply or duty of the horse or recent change in exercise or recent change in stabling. So there are so many different things, controversial studies that we see differently than each other. So it is very hard to list. There is a definite risk factors for colic. Therefore, why this list is important for us? Because we don't know what are the main risk factors for colic. So if you don't know the main risk factors, actually it is hard to prevent from this disorder. So we will mainly, and we really need to understand digestive tract, how the digestive tract is working, and what we can do for the digestive tract to work efficiently. But in these urgent cases, colic is an urgent case most of the time, your veterinarians might you ask some important questions. And these are commonly what you need to record for your veterinarian, for your practitioner. So it's very important for us to know the general health check, like temperature, pulse, respiratory rate, and so on. But beside that, we also need to know like bowel movements. So what was the last defecating time? What was the last urinating time? And how is the horse's feeding? And when was the last deworming for the horse? What is the medical history? And what was the last changes in the horse and so on? So those kind of questions your veterinarian, your practitioner will definitely ask you. So it is better that you record those answers before you call to your veterinarian. And diagnosis, we mostly do the diagnosis with after the regular physical examination. We most of the time apply to nasogastric tubing, ultrasonography, if mostly abdominal centesis as well. And if necessary, in some cases, we also do gastroscopy, sometimes radiography, and absolutely blood work and rectal examination that we apply for horses, as you see on those images. And the most important for us to know that what we can do to prevent from this very difficult managed, very high mortality rate conditions in horses. So consistent feeding routine. What does that mean? Establish a regular feeding schedule and stick to it as much as possible. That's a key factor for us. And because horses thrive on routine and sudden changes in feeding times or amounts can easily disrupt their digestive and increase the risk of colic. So I highly recommend consistent feeding routine for horses. So what does that mean? Feed meals at the same time each day with a consistent interval between meals. So if it is 6 a.m. in the morning, next day is supposed to be 6 a.m. as well. So today is 6, tomorrow 7, another day 8. No, it's not okay for horses. That's one of the key. And other thing is small meals. Because even though horses' digestive tract, gastrointestinal tract, it's so long, it's meters, but they need a small frequent meals. So providing small frequent meals also prevent colic in horses because it promotes efficient digestion in the gastrointestinal tract. And one other factor is like high quality forage. Provide horses with good quality forage, such as hay or pasture or alfalfa, as the primary component of their diet. High fiber forage helps maintain proper gut motility and also reduces the risk of impaction colic. Particularly, it reduces the impaction colic risk in horses. And what you need to do, you need to also make sure that the forage that you provide to the horse, which is free from mold, dust, and contaminants, because that could also be harmful for the digestive tract. And or a recent decrease in the pasture availability has been also associated with increased risk of colic. So besides quality, besides nutritious values, hygienic quality of the forage is something, a key factor that you need to think about it before you give a forage for the horses. And this is mostly is not possible to understand with a macroscopic examination. Therefore, a laboratory examination is also needed to understand the hygienic quality of the forage. Another factor is pasture turnout. Daily turnout for more than 12 hours helps promote normal gastrointestinal motility and also prevent stagnation in the digestive system. So that's why we also recommend a pasture turnout more than 12 hours per day. One other factor is adequate hay supply, and because the minimum amount of roughage recommended to maintain the optimal functioning of the hindgut microbes is equivalent to, as you see on the slide, 2% of the 2% per kilogram body weight per day. And if the hay is 84 to 90% dry matter, and most of the time hay is within this range. So one approach to an important factor that we need to focus on, specifically compared to feeding concentrate before hay and distributing hay first, has been observed to reduce alterations in the hindgut physicochemical environment, which would otherwise disrupt the microbial ecosystem in the hindgut. And one other factor is providing a high level of concentrate, which means that exceeding 2.5 kilogram concentrate dry matter per day elevates the likelihood of colic compared to not feeding concentrate at all. So therefore, consequently, reducing the amount of concentrate in the feed lowers the associated risk of colic. Although low starch concentrates will have lower risks than traditional grains. So these are top 6 important factors for optimizing the digestive health. But these are not the only one. We will keep on going with our list. But before that, I would like to show you the study on the right side that you see with the graphs. As you see on the studies, when we look at the odds ratio and relation with the colic and concentrate feeding, and feeding more than 2.5 kilogram concentrate per day, it is significantly increasing the odds ratio of the colic occurrence in horses. So therefore, low concentrate feeding is one of the key. And we also need to make sure that you also provide adequate water to the horses. Ensure horses have access to clean, fresh water at all times, not only with bucket. We recommend not only provide by meals, with buckets we recommend at all times, and preventing impaction. And one other factor with the water supply besides on the amount, can you see me? I don't know what happened to my camera. Can you see me?
We can hear you.
Yes, but can you see me?
No.
I don't know what happened. Let me click on it. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Again.
You're
I don't know what happened. Sorry for this. And also one other factor is the temperature of the water. Because in colder weather, I recommend you to use the heated water sources to prevent water from freezing. And also sudden changes in the water temperature may also impact as a colic risk factor. And as we have, it's not working. As we have talked about, pasture turnout more than 12 hours help promote normal gastrointestinal motility is important. And one other thing is gradual dietary changes, not sudden change, gradual dietary changes. So we recommend introduce dietary changes gradually to allow the horse's digestive system and microbiome to adjust. Not only you change diet, but you also provide time to adjust for the microbiome in the gastrointestinal tract. Because abrupt, sudden changes in feed type and quantity can upset the microbial balance in the gut and lead to digestive disturbances. Make any dietary adjustments over several days to several weeks, gradually replacing old feed with new feed. So you can add like very small amount, 1/5 amount of the feed from the new and 4/5 amount of the feed from the old previous diet, and then keep on mixing those two diets until the horse gets used to that. And one and other important factor is feeding management. So avoid feeding horses on the ground as they may ingest sand, dirt, or other foreign objects that can contribute to colic, which also maybe you know, sand is also one of the colic types, sand colic we call it, and which is also very common for the horses. They feed their diet from the floor, which is a sandy floor. That's also called a sand colic, but it also has other different reasons. And if you have an option, you can also use slow feeders or hay nets with smaller openings, so the horse can consume all the time. So the meals are not very seldom, so meals are not more than 6 hours apart, which can also help or promote healthy digestive tract in horses. So these are the main key factors that I can recommend to you to optimize the horse's digestive health. And there are, as I said, there are so many studies about colic risk factors and digestive health. And these are the references that I use for this study, but we will also hear so many new results in coming years because there's so many researches going on in the colic. So these are the main things that I wanted to share with you about digestive system. But one other thing that I would like to tell you about my book, because that's the news. I published my book. You can see that maybe here because I use the background, so you can't really see it on my hand. It's around 200 pages, which is published from the UK with a CRC press. And just in February 2025, so very recent book. And I highly recommend you to get this book. You can also get it online, because what I have aimed, together with Peter Huntington, the director of the Kentucky Research of Australia, what we aimed in this book, there's so many information that you can find in the market and also in science about nutrition, but those information is not very, sometimes it's very hard to apply them as a practice. So the aim of this book, or what makes this book different than the other books, so scientific information last 20 years, most important scientific information is convert as a practical application in this book, which is covering 4 parts: horse's digestive system, type of feed, and formulating a horse diet and top nutrition related disorders. So you can find a lot of practical information that you can use as a veterinary students, equine students, also as a horse owners or yard owners. So if you would like to order, I also added a link in here, so you can get from all around the world through Amazon or other platforms. And thank you very much for listening to me. It was great pleasure to be here, and I'm very happy to answer your questions if you have any questions.